Hi everyone, welcome to yet another episode of my show, the Ritu Podcast Show. And today I have with me a very special friend of mine, Sana Ulhaq. Welcome, Sana. And I'm so excited to invite her today and talk to her about the book that she wants to delve in and also about life. So I'll turn it over to you, Sana. Welcome, and can you please tell my viewers a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much, Ritu, for having me. And first of all, congratulations on your new podcast.
Thank you.
It's really great to be here. Ritu and I met about 4 or 5 years ago, I believe. We were co-workers. We worked together, and we were actually cube mates, and it was a really, really awesome experience
Yeah.
working with you, Ritu. Um, I I grew up in New Jersey, New York. I am originally from Pakistan, and I have a pretty uh, pretty good career trajectory. I work in clinical research, just like Ritu, and I am also in the process right now where I'm developing my personal side. Business type in mental health, and I've just created an interest in it, and I started exploring it for my own self, and I really just loved it. And now I do a podcast of my own where I talk about mental health and how it affects our South Asian women and South Asian culture and some of the things that we would like to change in it. And so that's like a personal passion and a personal purpose of mine that I'm working on, just raising awareness about the things that are wrong in our culture and what we do to change them. So that's a little introduction about me.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Sana. And I want to tell the viewers as well that Sana is one of the most passionate and sharp person I know. She's amazing, and even more amazing is what that she's a great person. So thank you again, Sana, for coming. And so since this is a show that I am trying to focus on books, but with the course of time and also during our journey of this podcast, it can touch other aspects, but we will see how that goes. So tell me, can you share how you initially developed an interest in reading?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, we used to go to the library a lot, like my siblings and I. And we used to just go and get lots of books. And this is back in the day in the 80s in Brooklyn, New York. And at that time, there was no limit on the books. And so we had just come from Pakistan, as an immigrant family. And we were just like, oh my God, this is like free books. We get to take books home. And so it was like a really out of this world type of a thing, right? So we would just go
Yeah.
and each of us would take like 20 books each, and we would come home with like this
Oh,
big bag of books. And a lot of the times we wouldn't even read that many of them. But I would take out the time to read as many as I could until we had to go back and return them. And sometimes we even forgot to give the books back, and nobody really cared. I don't know what happened with, like, the policies or what it was at that time, but nobody really followed up because it was so many books, and we sometimes we forgot to give some of them back. And so then my family moved back to Pakistan. So we lived in Pakistan for like 6 years. So I went to school in Pakistan. After that, I did my middle school in Pakistan. And we took a lot of the books that we had taken from the libraries, we took them to Pakistan. So a lot of
really?
these books, yeah, we took them there. And some of them were my sister's. My sister is 6 years older than me, and she was in high school at that time. So she had teenage books. So some of them were that. And so we took them to Pakistan. And so I used to read them even in Pakistan. I would read them. And then
Mm.
my dad was still in the US. So whenever my dad would come visit us, I would tell him to bring me some books. And I was like, when I
Wow.
finished reading the ones that we had taken from here, I was like, can you just get me this next series of this book? It was like the series of teenage high school
Yeah. Yeah.
a book series. And it was a really popular book series too. And I think later on
Wow.
it turned into a show or something. But yeah, so then I would ask my dad to bring me. So he brought me. But then as I got more older, as I came back to the US, did my high school, went into college, got married, I just, stopped reading. It was just, I didn't have time. Life got busy. We
Mm.
got older. And, then I got involved in like my marriage and then kids and stuff like that and work. So there was absolutely no time to read.
Mm.
And then just recently, when I went through a big part of my life, which was, you know, a big down part of my life, I realized I'm not in a good mental space. And I just wanted to help myself. I wanted to really help develop myself and work on my own mental health. And somebody told me to read a book on self-development. And
Mm.
I was like, oh my God, I haven't read a book in years, you know, how am I going to do that?
Mm.
And I picked up the book, I started reading it, and it was really hard to even keep attention in that book. Like that was my first book after years, and I was just
Mm.
reading the pages, and it was just like the attention span wasn't there, you know. It
Mhm.
was just like the mind kept on coming in, thoughts kept on coming in. It was just like, how do people even read books? You know, at the time, that
Yeah.
was my first thought, was like, how
Yeah.
do people even read books? Like, how does this even happen anymore?
Yeah.
I can't do this. So then I stopped.
Yeah.
Then I did some more work on myself, and I learned more about like how our mind comes in, and our mind can really we need to control our thoughts and stuff like that.
Mm.
So I started listening to videos to help me out in that and how to focus. Um, and then I started reading again. Once I had learned the skill of focusing, then I
Mm.
went back to the books. And so it's been 2 years now that I have been reading. I read daily. I read about an hour daily. I make sure that I have time in my schedule set aside to read daily. And so, yeah, that's how I got back into it.
Wow, Sana, that's so interesting. And while you were telling me, your reading journey, I was just reminded of something that one of my friends told me. It's probably one of my podcasts too, which will come out soon, where she said that, or probably not on the podcast, but she told me this that Ritu, there is no question in the world that cannot be answered by books. There is a solution for everything in the books, and she was coming from a very passionate space, and she also believes in the same vein that you just said, that in a mental space where you're looking for answers and you are not sure where to go, and she has always reached out to books too. So I think reading really is an important part of many people, and they really impact them in a very unique way. It's unique for every person, the experience.
Yeah,
So thank you
yeah,
so much for
completely.
sharing that, Sana.
No,
And
thank you.
so, since we're on the topic, and why don't you tell me the book that we're going to discuss today, and the book that you picked up, and that has impacted you very much and changed your
Yeah,
life? Yeah.
yeah, of course. Yeah. So, you know, it was hard for me to pinpoint one book because there's a few in
Okay.
my
Okay.
recent few years that have really made an effect on me. But I did pick one, which is my favorite. It's called The Power of Now, if you can
Okay.
see.
Yes.
This
Can
is
see that.
by Eckhart Tolle.
Uh-huh.
And he is a very he's a very famous writer. He has a few other books as well, which I am in the process of reading some of his other
Mm,
books too.
mm,
He is a British author, and the book is about us being present in the moment and knowing the power of the present, not the
mm,
past and not the future, and what it does, what it can do for us, for our lives. So my genre of interest is self-development, and this is my genre so far. I am really also interested in scientific fiction because I like science.
mm.
But there's a lot of self-development books which are tied to science too. And so I read those too because,
Oh,
you know,
really?
I'm a little bit,
Wow.
yeah, I'm a
Wow.
little bit
Yeah.
of a science geek. Because it's all related to the mind, right? If we're going to be talking about some self-development stuff, it's related to mind. And so there's a
It
lot
is.
of science that goes in the mind and
Yeah.
chemistry, neurochemistry.
Yeah.
So the power of now is, he also calls it a spiritual enlightenment. So there is some a little
Mm,
bit of religious talk in there as well.
I
He
see.
goes into
Mm,
almost all of the religions and
mm.
how
Interesting.
their theories have evolved in the past, and
Mm,
come to the conclusion that really, if we get rid of this illusion of time, like if we stop thinking of time, like past and future, we can resolve so many of our mental health problems.
mm,
Because we live in the past with things that have happened to us, or we
mm.
live in the worry of the future. What's going to
Right.
happen? How am I going to do this? But
Right.
really, what we do now determines the future, right?
Mm.
And so the way he
Yeah.
designed the book is also, he designed it in a question and answer format.
Okay. Okay.
So it's not
Okay.
just written out text. It's like a normal person is actually asking the questions and he answers them.
I
So
see.
it's not chapters, it's question
Mm.
and answers, questions and answers. And the question, so whatever he gives the answer, the next question is from that answer. And
Mm.
so the questions are like what I was thinking too. I was like, I want to ask this. And the
Yeah.
next question is that. And I'm like, oh my God. So it's kind of feels like a little bit like as if we're even having a conversation with Eckhart Tolle. So
So,
it's really
Sana,
awesome. I loved it.
why don't you share a question or a couple of questions that spoke to you right away from the book, if you remember? Or I'm sure when the viewers are listening to you, they are relating to you in some way, and maybe that question is in their head too. You know, anything that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, it has to, it's like sequential, right? It goes
Okay.
in a
Okay.
order, but
Okay.
I can just read, I can pick one out and I can read it to you.
Yeah, sure. That'd be great.
So it says, the question is, I feel like I need to learn and I need to do what my mind is telling me to do, because I learn from the workings of my mind and I can't get anywhere. I can't do anything other than what my mind is telling me to do. This is the
Mm.
question.
Mm.
And so the
Yeah.
answer is, yourself is not in the mind. Your mind is a tool that you have. The problems cannot be solved just on the level of the mind. Once you understand this basic sentence, there is so much you need to learn and understand in order to understand where yourself is.
Mm.
The mind's complexities are there because of the bias that the mind has and what the mind has gone through. But also the mind exists with ego and the mind
Mm.
exists with judgments.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm.
that's just a few
Okay.
sentences
Okay. Okay.
about the mind.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Thank you. Thanks,
it's
Sana,
really awesome.
for sharing that. And while you were saying that, it just occurred to me, like when you say that mind is telling you what to do, right? And if we apply that question in our daily lives, it could be anything, right? You want to focus on work, but your mind is telling you to go reach out to your phone and check your messages or check the
Yeah,
notifications, or
exactly.
or waking up in the morning to do your daily routine, exercise. You have
Yeah,
set yourself up that you want to do this, and
yeah,
in the morning the mind tells you, maybe not today. I'll do it tomorrow,
yeah.
things like that.
Completely.
And
And even like negative thing that your mind is telling you,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
no, you don't look that nice today. Oh no, look, this person doesn't like you anymore. Or, like
yeah,
all of these
yeah,
negative thoughts too that come
yeah.
up in our mind
Yeah,
constantly.
and I was listening to someone, and he gave a very unique example, and I don't know if it will resonate or relate with what we're talking now, but he said
Hmm.
something like, if you have an argument with someone, and that man or person leaves the house, and he shuts or slams the door and he leaves, and you're thinking that, oh, that was about me, he slammed the door because we had the argument, and because he does not like me, and from now on I have nothing to do with this person. But in reality, he didn't do that, but the wind was so hard that it slammed the door,
Mm,
right? So it really stuck with me, and I'm like, interesting. So it's
completely.
really the mind over matter, or and
Yeah.
you can share your feedback or reaction to that, but that's what came to my mind when I was listening
No,
to what you
that's
were saying.
completely the point that
Yeah,
I'm trying to make here too. And then he goes into
yeah,
detail and really explains it well. So for people to really understand what he's saying. And you're right about that, because when we think of something that has happened, it is only going to be based on our mind's experience, what our
yeah,
mind thought is happening. So it's
yeah,
perception. And
yeah,
if we see something as black, somebody else may be seeing it as white.
yeah,
And so how do you know which one is the truth and which one is not the truth? It's really all just a perception based on
mm,
our own experience, and that's it.
mm,
It
yeah,
just makes it so much clearer. And it's the same for the books, that when I was initially trying to read a book, it was my mind that kept on trying to come in and couldn't focus, right? And I think a lot of the
mm,
people who are not able to read books because their mind is so active. And I think that's a lot of a problem these days because we have so much information in other places, right? Like we have social media, we have our phones in our hand. It's so easy to watch a video. It's like,
Yeah.
why would I even read a book? You
Yes,
know? But the
exactly.
thing with books is that if it's a good book and it has good like reviews and people have said that it has made a difference for
Yeah.
people, then that means that it's because there's research done on it. There's an
Yeah.
expert person who wrote it, an expert person who knows what they're talking about versus
Yeah.
videos is anyone based on anyone's, you know, experience or what they thought.
Right.
And so it gets hard for people to really realize the value of books these days.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. These days, let alone video, people just want to watch shorts. They don't even want to
Yeah,
read,
yeah,
watch an
I know.
entire video, right?
I know.
So it's
And I get
crazy.
distracted too. Like I'm reading a
Yes.
book and then I'm gonna get a text and then I'm gonna start texting and you know, then
Yeah.
I just stop and then I just start going on Instagram and then I forget
Yeah.
about the book. But then I try to discipline myself. I'm like, okay, no phones, no phone, put it away. So it's a little bit of like practice and focusing.
Yeah, I know. I
Yeah.
totally agree. And so now, before you also mentioned a word ego, which I think a lot of people don't understand it fully what it means, right? And why don't you just tell briefly what is in this book that describes or identifies with what ego is, and what has been talked about in the book about that?
Yeah, so he goes into the different aspects of the mind and how the mind can bring in these things, and ego is one of them. And he talks about how we relate to the ego and we make decisions and actions based on that. And ego is basically a survival for our mind. It's a way of our minds to kind of protect us, you know, in getting hurt. Because when someone says something and we get offended by it, that is a hurt, right? And then it causes havoc for the mind because the mind goes crazy with that kind of a
Yes.
hurt that comes in.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
the ego is like a protection for that hurt
Right.
because we
Right.
can't handle that hurt.
Yeah.
And so it lashes out, or it's going to say, even in a mean way or in a pride way, to kind of say things like, you don't, we don't like you, or something like that, which you actually don't mean, which you're actually not kind of saying it what is true to your
Yeah.
real self, but
Yeah.
you're doing it because you don't want to get hurt, you know?
Yeah.
So that's how he portrays the ego, and he really explains it. And I loved it. It really actually made sense when I think of the, like, even for me, what the thoughts I have had.
Yeah. And then, Sana, I was also researching a little bit about the book, and it also talks about acceptance and surrender, right? And so tell me a little bit what it means and how it can help you. I know we all hear this around us, right? Acceptance and surrender, but what does it, like, how do you perceive it, or how has it been said from this book point of view?
Okay. Acceptance and surrender. So he ties everything back to the power of now, meaning now, right now, where we are right now. So acceptance is letting go of the past and accepting where you are right now in the moment. And, you know, we have regrets, we have constant worries about the past or what we did in the past and how it has affected us now, and what happened, it didn't go the way we wanted it to go. So accepting now, accepting the present, accepting where we are right now, and surrendering to the fear of the future, because there's a lot of fear tied with the future too. You know, like, am I going to reach my goal that I wanted to reach? Am I gonna buy the house that I wanted to house? Am I gonna get the promotion? Or is my kid going to be okay? You know, all the worries of the future that we have are also tied with fears, because it's not just worrying about it, it's also fearing something wrong will happen.
Yeah.
But if you are just focusing on the now, in the moment that you are in, the moment now determines the future anyway. right? So focus on what you're doing now, surrender to the moment in the now, give up the worries and the fears, and just be present in the happiness, like we're checked out, where a lot of the times our brain is like in the autopilot and the thoughts, and also in also about like just reaching the goal, reaching that timestamp that we want to reach. Once we reach that timestamp, then it's the next one. We want to reach. Once you get to that one, then it's the next one. So it's constant chasing. It's a constant cycle of chasing. So when are we going to really enjoy the now? And the now means it's a journey. It's about the journey. It's not about the end. I hope that explains it with the surrender and acceptance.
It does, Sana. And I think that was also a good summary or summation of whatever we spoke today and the essence of the power of now. So thank you for that, Sana. That was really, really great. And again, I can't thank you enough to have come here today and talk about the book and talk about your life experiences while in the course of reading this book. So thank you so much. And before I let you go, do you have anything that you want to say to my viewers? Why should they go? I mean, you already said why, but I'm sure you want to recommend this books to whoever is listening this. So I'm just gonna give it back to you for something that you want to say before we let you go.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ritu. I think what I would like to say to your listeners is to please check out this book. And this book is about self-development. And so I think self-development is a place where we all should begin. I think it's an investment in ourselves. And there's a lot of other books in this genre as well. And so the only thing I would like to say is that once you develop in yourself, once you invest in yourself, you put in as much time as you can to your own development, miracles will happen. Things around you will change. Everything around you will change. Your relationships will change. Your life circumstances will change. And so investment in yourself is the biggest message that I'd like to give.
Thank you so much, Sana. With that note, I'll take your leave. Thank you so much again for doing this. And I really want you back on my show with another amazing book and life experiences. Thanks and have a great day. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.